Is it possible for Israel to conduct a military response that will not cause problems with the U.S., the U.K., France, and others?
Thank you, Joe, for having me on. It is possible, but in the end, the Israelis have to decide this because this is their security. They're in an existential struggle in which the Hamas October 7th attack and the latest Iranian attack 2 days ago are only the manifestations of the tip of the iceberg that has been Iran's march through the region for the last 20 years. Israel is just one of the many targets. This is why Israel and the United States were able to mobilize European countries and Arab countries to help fend off the Iranian attack. What Israel wants to do now is to reestablish deterrence. That's a principle of Israeli foreign policy, and it's understandable. But remember, when Saddam Hussein fired 40 missiles into Israel in 1991, Israel didn't respond. Rather, it stayed out of the fight and allowed the United States to take down Saddam's armies in Kuwait a few weeks later. President Trump did not respond after we killed Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian Quds Force leader, in 2020, and we were attacked by some 20 or 30 missiles. Again, sometimes the best approach is to find other ways to bring down your enemy more subtly.
Well, Ambassador, I wonder if you view what would be beneficial to Israel in the near term and long term as being the same in this instance, because there's been the prospect raised of, for example, Israel striking directly Iranian nuclear facilities, potentially taking out some capacity, which would have a longer term ramification. But of course, in the near term, that also could just spark potentially the regional conflict that everyone is so worried about. How carefully does Israel need to tread here, even if potentially it leaves lingering threats that they will have to face in the future?
Right. First of all, without using nuclear weapons, people think Israel has, but no confirmation. Israel can't take out Iran. In particular, it can't take out the Iranian nuclear capacity, particularly the Fordow enrichment facility, which is buried under a mountain near Iran. Only the U.S. has that capability. And the U.S. has warned Israel that it will not go along with a retaliatory strike. The U.S. fears a widening of this war, tens of thousands, not hundreds, of missiles flying in each direction, and possible American casualties. The better approach for Israel, frankly, is to press the United States in return for not launching a retaliatory raid, for the United States to be pressed to give Israel the final green light to finish off Hamas in Gaza, in the town of Rafah along the Egyptian border. That is a critical need for Israel, and it would be a far bigger blow to Iran and its alliance than anything Israel could do in the air, particularly something that doesn't create casualties, which, believe me, is very hard.
Ambassador, I need to ask you about what's happening or not happening in the case of Ukraine. With a concerted debate here, we're waiting for a legislative text on a bill that would potentially send funding for Ukraine, now months in the making. The administration here in Washington told us at the end of last year that the window was closing for Ukraine. We know that they are running low on ammo. At what point is it just too little too late? If they pass this bill tonight, and that won't happen, by the way, it still takes an enormous amount of time to direct the money to start making the shells that Ukraine needs. Where are they going to be in June, for instance, if it takes that long? Is it already too late?
No, it is not too late. First of all, despite the fact that, as people say, the tactical situation on the ground in Ukraine has shifted from Ukraine being on the offensive, not very successfully last year, to Russia seizing some territory in the past 4 months. But the territory it seized is about the size of Washington, D.C. It's not a large area. The Russians have their own problems. And if the Ukrainians go back on the defensive, what you need is not just artillery pieces and artillery shells and money from the United States, but a lot of concrete and a lot of shovels to dig deep. Minefields to plant, other obstacles to put in the way. It's very hard to crush a determined force that is dug in, as Israel, for example, is seeing in Gaza. It can be done, but not easily. Meanwhile, Ukraine can buy time that way. I'm sure that in the end, the U.S. and other countries in NATO, European countries, can come up with the money. My goodness, we have between us some 30 times the GDP, the economic wealth of Russia. Why can't we provide support to an ally that is faithfully and heroically defending itself and tying down most of the Russian military? This is a great benefit for all of us and for our security and for our peace at home.
Well, and Ambassador, as you talk about the idea that we're seeing maybe something Israel fighting a dug-in enemy or combatants at the same time that you're seeing kind of the dug-in nature reflected in Ukraine, I also wonder what parallels you see or the relationship of these two conflicts, knowing that Iran specifically does have a relationship with Russia. How does what happens in Ukraine also affect what happens in the Middle East or vice versa?
Thank you. I'll have to go back to my personal intellectual and foreign policy hero, Henry Kissinger. In looking at the globe and looking at international relations, you have to distinguish between a normal situation and an abnormal one. An abnormal one is created when a regional or global power tries to overthrow the system, a revolutionary power in that sense. Napoleon was one, Hitler was another, Stalin was the third. The Cold War was all about this. Right now, we have two powers that are absolutely directly trying to overthrow regional orders, Russia in Europe and Iran in the Middle East, and it's no surprise that they're supporting each other. China, the jury is still out. I and others talked to the Chinese. They certainly do not want an overall confrontation with the United States. They're reluctant to use military force in any direct way. But we have to watch that closely. But so far, certainly between Iran and Russia, we have a challenge to the global order. And what we learned in the 1930s, tragically, is if you do not respond to it in faraway places, it comes to you.